Thank you. Let's see if I master this device. I'm going to tell you what I did last summer. I had the most exciting summer job. I was appointed by the Swedish government to review a part of the Swedish pension system, the premium pension system. And when you're thinking about reforming pensions, I heard that Sweden is often one of the candidates people are looking at. But every country has its own path, and every pension system is path dependent. What you could do in Sweden at a certain point in time was unique because there's a lot of things happening there. So when you think about pension, it's a bit like the Irish joke. If I'm going to reform the pension system, where should I start? Well, the answer is not from here. So this is a big challenge. It is a big challenge. Look, this is the planet, right? I want to start the presentation by actually recognizing we all live on this little planet that is very alone out there in space. And there's a lot of humans on this planet. And we have a primary mission, a biological mission, which we're really, really good at, and that's reproducing. It's 7.5 billion of us, right? There's so many of us who actually make this planet crumble. The climate is sort of under stress. And you know, our biological mission, we're hardwired for that. So this is what we're striving for. We want to create families. And how do you create a family? How are you best rigged for that? Overconfidence is good, right? If you're overconfident, you're going to find your partner because you're going to be out there trying. And even if you fail, you're going to try again because you're overconfident. When you find your partner and you have your offspring, you're going to take care of that as well because then you have a bit of status quo bias coming in, right? If you want your offspring to survive, you cannot just run away because you saw another one who was much nicer. So we're programmed to stay with our offspring. We're programmed to also have escalating commitments towards our offspring. Because your kids is very cute when they're young and then they become teenagers. But the whole point, we need to make our offspring survive. That's our biological mission, so they can continue with the mission. But then we have to do pension, right? Poor us. But our biological traits, the ones we're hardwired with, they are always there. You cannot change it. So the only way to deal with it is to accept who we are. Don't try to, you're not going to fix it with education. We're not going to fix it with more transparency. We just have to accept that people are what people are, and they're the same all over the world, believe me. So there's no difference if you're looking at Chile, Australia, Sweden, or Germany, or anywhere else. What was really interesting when we did this review, we did a bit of research. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. But actually, one of the outcomes from a survey were very intriguing. So the researcher, a Dutch person, checked that with her colleagues. And then he said, guess which country this data comes from? She never disclosed where. One said Chile, one said Australia, one said Germany, one said UK. So the data is more or less the same from everywhere. So what you can learn from the Swedish review is how people behave and what we try to do with that. When you think about pension reforms in any country, look at other countries and steal the good ideas. No system is perfect. So what happened in Sweden? Well, Sweden has a standard system like everyone else. You have 3 pillars. And I'm only going to talk about the first pillar, which is basically 3 components. Sweden did a massive reform in 1994. It was probably the biggest pension reform ever done in the world, and it was completely bold because it tried something no one else tried before. They said, we want to have a pay-as-you-go system, which is generational neutral and can take care of demographic humps. This is sort of state pension, defined benefit pay-as-you-go. And they rebuilt it and came up with a notional DC and put it to practice. That's the biggest chunk, which says 16%. That's the amount of contribution going in. When they did this reform, they also came up with another component, which is basically an individual DC, like the 401k system mentioned before. But think, this is not in the occupational pension. This is in the state pension. So everybody who gets some sort of income has to pay into the system. So if you're self-employed, you can't get away. If you work in the gray economy, well, you don't pay tax, so you get away. But this has a good coverage in that sense. And if you're not, what's going on? Okay, if you don't have enough income to get part of this system, there's sort of a guaranteed pension coming in. And if that is not enough to pay for your house, you have housing allowance coming from the government. So when the government looks at this package, it's a lot of things that sticks together. Now you might say, wow, what a country. You have housing allowance. If you don't have enough money, you have a guaranteed pension, a lot of other stuff. Well, we pay a lot of tax too, so nothing is for free. But the interesting part, when you looked at this and they designed it, you wonder, how could they come up with such a solution? How can you get it through the policies? How can you actually make the decisions happen? And actually, here come the path dependency in again. Because in the 50s, Sweden did another big pension reform, introduced what they call the ATP, which is not the Danish one, but it's like general additional pension. And that discussion was very, very fierce in all political parties. So it actually, some parties almost broke in two because they couldn't agree on the pension issue. So all the politicians, they were extremely worried when you have to do a reform again. So how do you deal with a problem you don't want to deal with? Well, you get a cross-parliamentary agreement. So every political party agree we're going to change the pension. So everybody's to blame and no one is to blame. So Sweden created an amazing thing because every party who was powerful back in '94, they signed a paper saying, we're going to agree to create a pension reform and we're going to take this off the political debate. And they could build a long-term system because it wasn't fluctuating depending on who had the power in a certain period. But it all came because they had such a scary experience in the past. This was the blessing and the curse of the system. Because '94 was a long time ago, right? And had basically been no reforms until recently, since then, because the politician could never agree. But there were some really interesting innovations in this premium pension because that was new. And what was, I think, was one of the really clever ideas was to say, why not think like if we wasn't a commercial entity, we would create a 401k plan. A 401k plan has one administrator, right? And you have, what's it called, blind contracts. So the asset manager doesn't know who's in there. And you can use your procurement power against the financial industry. So they thought kind of right. So you have basically a national 401k, which is very cheap to administrate. And if you shift your funds, your investment funds, you don't have to change your administration. Quite clever. The thing they made really, really bad, they really believed in this sort of market will solve everything. So the Swedish politician had this idea that if you just have enough competition on this platform, prices will go down to almost zero, all bad funds will disappear because the consumer power will sort it out, a bit like buying toothpaste in the store, right? Unfortunately, it didn't work. And they should have known it back then, but it was very ideologically driven. So, of course, there was a lot of reviews coming. So people have looked into the Swedish pension system with 3 big reviews, all coming to the conclusion, we need to do something different. This is not good enough. It's not good for the members. Every time the politicians came to the same conclusion, we cannot agree, so we let the original agreement from '94 be there. This was very frustrating. And then, of course, now and then, you are lucky. And you have to thank the gods for that, because we had a massive fraud, right? What is better than get politicians active than someone stealing money out of the pension system that belongs to the people, right? The politician says, we need to do something. This is scary. We need to show that we're strong. What do we do when we're strong? We start a pilot study, right? So they basically came to the conclusion, we need some short-term fixes. So they've done that. And then they said, now, when we have this problem, shouldn't we once and for all look at this and try to make it better? And luckily, for me, they called me. I couldn't say no because this is like the coolest project you could do. Because the Swedish pension system is quite interesting, but it's extremely ideologic. So I thought like, okay, all research has been done. We know enough, The books in behavioral has been written. We know roughly what goes on a sort of consumer platform like this. So I couldn't resist doing some research anyway. Because, think about having access to data. In Sweden, in the premium pension, every transaction from every individual in the whole country since year 2000. And you can connect that with where they live, how much they earn, what kind of education they have, how many children they have, whatever you want to add. This is like better than Facebook, right? You know everything. So what I did, I commissioned Lisa Brüchen from Maastricht University to look into this. And she's a specialist in doing surveys, and she knows a lot about consumer choice on platforms. So I asked her, so we got some money, and she got access to the data, and we looked at 3,000 people and asked a lot of questions. One of the most amazing outputs was people appreciate choice. So if I have choice, I feel better. I feel better about my financial well-being in the future if I like choices. Then we checked on the people who actually made the choice in the premium pension. They had no impact whatsoever on their financial well-being. So key issue, give people some choice because they feel good, but using them is not going to make them feel better or worse. Key issue when pension design comes in. And then we also discovered that people who actually said, I feel there's a bit of choice overload in our system because the 850 funds to choose from in this platform, right? It's a bit lot. So people say, it's too much. So you're very open to a nice advisor telling you which funds to buy, which is not necessarily the cheapest one. So then we also wanted to study a bit more, how do people in Sweden, Swedes are on average very financially literate if you do one of these generic studies. So here's a picture on a bit of data. So Swedes are very aware that fund cost is really important. And expected return is really important when you're looking for a fund. And the level of risk. So, they seem to understand what's going on. And they also know that which kind of fund provider you choose, if you have like a global North American equity fund, doesn't really matter in mutual fund space. So this sounds really good. So Lisa then got the idea, like, let's ask them what they remember of their own pension choices. And now comes the interesting part here, right? If I get the clicker to work. The cost is the most important. When you ask them, do you know if you own an index fund or not, 50% don't know. The least important part is which provider do you have? Well, almost 60% know which provider they have. So the challenge with this one is, even if you know what to do, it's not necessarily what you do. It's probably a sign here that a lot of funds are not being bought on this platform, they're rather sold to the consumer. Then we had someone we actually heard a lot about here, mentioned a couple of times. It's an old gentleman called Richard Thaler. He wrote a book called Nudge, which has been mentioned. In that book, he has a chapter on Swedish premium pension as an example of a bad choice architecture, which was brilliant, right? Very good. So we asked him, would you be part of this research team too? And he said, sure, this is really good because now he has the time to actually do the right thing. So here comes some interesting data, how nudges actually impact people. The big one is year 2000. In year 2000, the government said, we're going to introduce this premium pension. It's really important that people make choices. And if you don't make a choice, you're a bad person, right? It's almost like that, very aggressive marketing. So basically, over 60% made a choice. Then this sort of thing started to decay off. So people are new to the Swedish premium pension system today, 99.5% of them choose the default. The 0.5% who are actually going to choose a fund, that's roughly of the new entrants to the labor market in Sweden. That's roughly 1,000 people, and they have roughly 850 funds to choose from. So that's pure democracy, one fund for everyone. Then you can say, well, when people have worked for a while, maybe they become more aware. So if you look at the stock of all the things in there, the picture tells another story. It seems like the first year is the same, but then you see, well, people start to do more and more changes in the fund, and around 2010, almost 20% are doing a change. That's kind of amazing, isn't it? But if you know what happened in reality, there was a new business started, where advisors became asset allocation experts for those who didn't want to make it themselves. So you can sign a paper saying, please take care of my premium pension, do my asset allocation, and they charge you, say, 50 euros or something up front. And if you have a small pot, that's quite a lot of money. And the pension authority said, who runs the system, said, we're having problems making this work. It's too much transactions. So they put the gate down and said, we're going to stop this. And of course, the independent financial advisors came up with the brilliant idea, we're going to put our own funds on this platform. And the big design problem here was actually they kept it so open, they don't have any barriers. So if you have a fund that happens to be UCITS registered, which is sort of approval anywhere in the EU, and Malta is the easiest one to get it through, you can plug in your fund. There's no controls on anything. So that system was basically set up for fraud. But the interesting part, if you look now in 2017, it's 4% changing every year in the system. And a lot of this is driven because you have nice cross-selling experiences. You're going to get a mortgage, and the bank says, well, if you move your premium pension money to our funds, we'll give you a discount. So my gut feeling here is that there's not going to be a lot of activity on this platform if you take away the advice and the cross-selling activities, because people are genuinely not overly interested in it. And here's another piece from Richard Thaler's paper as well. When he looked into this, he said in 2010, they changed the default dramatically in Sweden. So default was basically an MSCI World Index. I'm a bit ahead of myself. It was an MSCI World Index. In 2010, they said, why not we add 50% leverage on it? Which is a massive change in risk profile. Hardly anyone switched away from the default. One of the funds who ended up with a broad fraud, they basically was all over the media. It was like front cover news. Everybody talked about it on the radio. You couldn't have missed it. You expect it to be a run on that fund, right? Actually, even when the auditor went to the authority and said, hey, these are criminals, you have to pursue them, only 16% had shifted out of the fund, which means people were not really looking at this. Or people were thinking of the choice as when you buy a car. I've done my pension choice now, so I don't have to worry anymore. So when you start thinking about this, you have to build the platform slightly differently. And the government has also to take responsibility. So in the review itself, we have three pieces. First is basically get your goal right. The second piece, build a good choice architecture. And the third piece, make sure it's implemented in such a way that you take away the incentive for fraud or bad market practices. It sounds obvious, doesn't it, right? But the problem is, when you have to get this through a set of politicians with different beliefs, it's a very, very difficult process. So I basically went to them and said, dear politicians, you own this system. There's no one else owning the system. You have to take responsibility. You have to specify what do you want with this premium pension. The premium pension is part of the public social security system. It's not a standalone thing. It's a component of something bigger. What do you want from this bigger piece, and what do you then expect from the premium pension? You could argue here you have two ways of financing your state pension. One is with exposure to the wage inflation or the real economy. That's the income pension, the pay-as-you-go system with the buffers. The other one is the funded premium pension, which has exposure to the financial markets. That creates some sort of diversity in your funding of your pension. You can then wonder, should I see this as one portfolio, which I'm going to optimize, that income pension is like bonds and premium pension is equity, and then gear it up as much as you can? Then I have an optimized approach. Or should you look at this from a robust perspective? Because if it doesn't work, it's the government who has to pay the bill. So I argue, please look at a robust approach, because this is the foundation of people's pension. On top of that, you have occupational pension and private savings. I know this is very, very different from the countries you live in, because in many countries, you don't have a decent state pension, and your occupational pension might be the stuff that's going to make it. But the point, the lesson learned here is that someone has to be in charge. Someone has to set the goals, whatever they are. Because if you don't do that, you cannot just delegate to the agency, who is the default fund, come up with something good. Because then you're going to end up with disappointment. And this is, basic management theory. So I put Peter Drucker there because I think it's a good illustration of you have to get your goals right. That's step number one. Step number two was to build a choice architecture. And then I painted out all the extremes, and you have to put what you want in the middle, right? That's kind of framing. So in one extreme further out, it says there's one choice, whether you like it or not. That's a Danish model with ATP. The other extreme, as far away you can go over there, is the Australian model. Basically, you can put everything into your pension stuff in the individual superannuation fund, even your sailing boat. And then you have a couple of things in between. Nest solution, which I think is a good example, is the one where you basically have the default choice and a little bit underneath. It's not too much to make choices on. That's my favorite, actually. I think that's enough for most people in pension. Because pension is not your core business. You have other things you want to do. You want to be with your family or wash your car or whatever. But pension comes very far down on the list. So if you have something like that, we can get good solution that kind of, you have to choose once and they adjust through your period, that's enough. In Sweden, politicians on the right wing would have said, no way, it's never going to happen. So then we thought, why not do a system in between where you say the base is this, safe environment with a few funds in it, so you have some choice. And if you don't want, you can opt out. You can opt out into a sort of 401k solution. Then, if you do this in a good way, the people who really don't like choice, they say, well, most people are going to stay in this sort of secure environment. And those who really think people will do a lot of choices, they say, well, they can go down into this platform, and time will tell which one will win. The important part here, there already exists a fund platform. There's no extra cost for setting it up. If you would start from scratch, I would be doubtful to build it. But that's my personal opinion. The most intriguing part is actually on the implementation of the platform. So the nice part is in Nudge, in Richard Thaler's story, this is sort of the base alternative. So when we presented this to the politicians, it was long before he got the Nobel Prize, like 2 months before. They thought it wasn't so brilliant, the one who liked a lot of choices. We invited Richard, he came to Stockholm. Some politicians had more important things to do than listen to him because they didn't want to hear it. And of course, with a little bit of help from Uncle Nobel, and that's the big stuff in Sweden, he got the Nobel Prize. So you cannot give out the Nobel Prize with this hand and say it's useless with that hand, right? So that helped policy come together. As my wife said, you should be lucky. And this was more than lucky. So if you look at, think now, you have this 401k, and in Sweden you have a system with complete open architecture. It's like begging for fraud, and we got it. So what you could do then is to say, if you still want an open architecture where people can put up their funds, you can introduce a filter saying You need a certain amount of asset management, you need a certain track record, you need to have assets in another platform, etc., just to make sure that you get the worst crooks out. Or you can go more thinking like, wait a minute, if you look at the 401k solution, the typically trustees on top of it, and the trustees are actually looking at the funds that goes onto the platform. So we said, why not follow that model? Why not do that? Because that's sort of the obvious thing, that almost any platform, commercial or trustee-based, have a function who's actually in charge of the platform. Sounds obvious, right? The other alternatives to far away there were more like there should be like 10 funds and they should be done by the government, or 10 funds of funds, very restricted model. So we thought also, why not do like a professional solution? Because when you do that, when you have an open architecture, you can get this bad market practicing coming in the back door. But if you have a fund which is procured, where certain funds only can enter the platform, I think you break that boundary in a better way. There was a nice anecdotal story here that when one of the civil servants were discussing with one of the provider who didn't want this change to happen, they said, well, it's really important with competition, and you must have an open platform, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, how does your 401k solution work? Do you have someone in charge? Do you have someone selecting funds? I said, yes. And then they looked down at the table, and that discussion was over. The interesting part here was it was a very, very tough political debate back and forth. And what I found quite challenging here was, how do you get this through? I mean, this is not rocket science, right, what I told you. All of you can come up with this very simply, who are interested in pension. But how do you get politicians to buy it? And what I experienced, what I found the most fascinating with this was, it was a we story, it was not a me story. I was sort of first doing this review and doing a lot of the fighting, but the civil servants were with me, the researchers, and a broader and broader group came along until we reached a tipping point where we actually got sort of the mentality to switch. And one big important driver to this was actually this hat. Because my rhetorics was a bit simple. I realized this is not super new designs. I need a way to get politicians who are typically, they have a good heart, they don't know much about pension, and they're very sort of captured by their own ideologic economic theory. So I have to say, how can I get it through to them? So I said, if you're in the Wild West, you had a lot of outlaws doing bad things, you need a sheriff in town. And that little analogy, I think, helped politicians to actually say, yes, this is really important that we have someone protecting people, because the bad practice is going on. And also the right wing, who was the one who was most against this solution, surprisingly, they came around because they realized this is a solution that is, I think, acceptable for both right and left in Sweden. So, in December, one second, I'm going back. Oh, I went far back. So here you have, this is the pension group. This is the politicians who actually came up with it. And on December 14, that is less than 7 months since we started, they had an agreement on this and other things. And the strength with that agreement, it contains also an agreement on increased pension age, a lot of other things. So going back to revise anything of what has been decided there would be very, very difficult. So even if there's an election coming up next year, this is going to continue and be developed. So what did they then decide? Well, they followed my plan.
Construir un puente entre el análisis económico y psicológico en la toma de decisiones individuales. La economía del comportamiento, como hemos observado y escuchado el día de hoy, nos permite entender que acciones sencillas y empujones pueden ponerse en práctica para facilitar la vida diaria de las personas y evitar conductas como las que les mencioné, de posponer decisiones que deben ser tomadas inmediatamente. Pese a que valoramos el futuro, pensamos en otras cosas y dejamos la pensión por ahí a un lado. Entonces, este estudio de la economía del comportamiento incide también no solo en las pensiones, sino en toma de decisiones en nuestra vida diaria y cosas sencillas, como pensar en qué escuela voy a poner a mis hijos, voy a cambiar mi alimentación. Hemos observado últimamente que en supermercados están colocando frutas en vez de dulces. O sea, cosas como esas que son sencillas llevan al ser humano a pensar mejor y tomar mejores decisiones y decir, esto me conviene. Y eso es lo que se ha planteado hoy respecto a las pensiones. Esto nos permite pensar y llegar pues a la conclusión de que estas barreras inciden en forma crucial, principalmente, pues como les dije, en un ahorro a futuro. Nosotros aquí les traigo pues la experiencia del CIACAP en Panamá, de los afiliados que han ahorrado en nuestro sistema. Los escuchamos cuando van a cobrar su cuenta individual, de que la necesitan para irse a un viaje, para comprar un carro, para pagar alguna deuda, y todos lo cobran en un solo pago. Entonces, no se programan, no lo ven como un ahorro complementario, que pegado a mi pensión puedo mejorar mi calidad de vida de la vejez. Y todo esto tiene que ver con la economía del comportamiento, porque todo esto incide en que estas personas no piensan, al igual que algo tan sencillo como llenar un formulario y designar beneficiarios. Damos charlas, se les explica que si algo les pasa, lo heredan sus beneficiarios, y la gente nos contesta, pero es que yo no me voy a morir, ahorita no tengo planeado morirme, eso para después, yo después lleno el formulario. Y no saben cuántas personas fallecen teniendo su fondo y sus beneficiarios tienen que ir a un juicio de sucesión, que ya muchos aquí son abogados y saben que eso es algo complicado. Entonces, decisiones como esas, que las personas en el momento, solo piensan en el momento, no me voy a morir, nadie piensa que se va a morir, pero ocurre. Y no mueren viejos, mueren de repente pues, a una edad pues, más joven, ¿no? Entonces, el Estado y las empresas que administran los fondos de pensiones deben cooperar para que las personas ahorren para su retiro. Y la economía del comportamiento ha evidenciado que con pequeños cambios es posible lograr mejores resultados e incrementar este ahorro. Entre estos cambios está la simplificación de trámites y facilidades para cotizar o aportar. Y algo que escuché, y es cierto, cuando uno habla de temas financieros a diversos niveles, desde estudiantes de la escuela, universitarios y a niveles de profesionales, hay no quiero decir un temor, pero hay como algo que la gente dice, no, ese tema es algo complicado, eso tiene sus expertos que conocen esa materia. Entonces, escuché a uno de los expositores decir que una clave es transmitirle este tema de una forma sencilla, hacer propaganda, pero lo más sencillo posible. Y yo creo que eso es importantísimo. Porque nosotros hemos dado charlas, explicamos, hablamos de el término previsión social, mucha gente, previsión social, no sabe. O sea, cosas básicas que nosotros, los que estamos en este medio, pues podemos entender, pero sí hay que hacer una campaña de educación previsional. Es importantísimo hacerlo. Yo sé de países que incluso en sus universidades tienen como materias básicas o generales la materia sobre previsión social. Es importante hacerlo. a los jóvenes no les gusta. Yo tengo un hijo universitario y cuando los amigos van a mi casa me comienzan a preguntar, ¿y de qué trabajas? Y yo les explico y se me duermen. Ellos, ¿y qué es esto? ¿Y por qué? Y eso que yo se lo explico de una forma un poquito divertida, ¿no? Entonces, no piensan en eso no está ahorita mismo, pero debemos llegar y se mencionó que en las escuelas, la verdad es que los niños, digo, desde chiquitos nosotros ahorrábamos para la cuenta de Navidad, en una libretita a mano que nos llenaban, en mi época, que no hace mucho, ¿no? Entonces, ahora los jóvenes están apáticos a este tema. Como parte de la estrategia del BID, mencionaron el laboratorio de ahorro para el retiro y se utiliza la economía del comportamiento para mejorar los sistemas de ahorro en los países de América Latina y el Caribe. Esto se hace mediante la cooperación de los gobiernos, las administradoras y los empleadores, basados en la psicología humana y los avances tecnológicos. Pero los avances tecnológicos por sí solos no son suficientes. Necesitan otros elementos para buscar reducir costos, por ejemplo, y lograr mejores rentabilidades, y el tema de la educación, que lo reitero porque lo considero sumamente importante. Cabe mencionar que la naturaleza humana es solo una barrera para el desarrollo previsional, ya que también existen fallas en los mercados laborales y en el funcionamiento de algunos sistemas de pensiones que, como sabemos, tienen que ser revisadas las leyes periódicamente, y ya estamos viendo pues la experiencia de Chile, que pues ha hecho modificaciones, y otros países. Nosotros también aquí en Panamá, el tema de las inversiones, el Consejo de Administración, que es nuestro órgano máximo, ha emitido resoluciones tratando de abrir el compás al tema de las inversiones para lograr pues, rendimientos beneficiosos para los afiliados. Debemos identificar las formas específicas para reducir estas barreras, y esto ha sido expuesto el día de hoy muy claramente por los expositores y sigue siendo un reto, yo creo, y lo seguirá siendo siempre, porque es un tema que va a ir cambiando, como les dije. Y bueno, quiero, antes de finalizar, agradecer a todo el equipo de la Superintendencia del Mercado de Valores, del CIACAP, del BID y de la IOS, que pues cooperaron para que se llevara a cabo este evento, que creo que el día de hoy, su primer día de seminario, siempre casi al final los seminarios como que quedan vacíos, y observo y me agrada, la verdad es que hay todavía una gran cantidad de personas. Este equipo trabajó hasta tarde en la noche preparando todo, y quiero felicitarlos, y bueno, quiero agradecer la atención que han prestado tanto a los expositores como a mis conclusiones, y bienvenidos a Panamá a los que nos visitan, y espero que tengan una grata estadía en nuestro querido país. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, y ahora recibimos a Waldo Tapia, especialista senior de la División de Mercados Laborales del BID.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Primero que todo quiero agradecer a la IOS, a CIACAP y a la SMB por hacer partícipe al Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo en tan importante evento. Muy pocos saben, poca gente lo sabe, pero hoy tengo la fortuna, o por no decir la gran fortuna, de celebrar mi cumpleaños con ustedes. O sea, no me dejaron terminar. La gran fortuna de celebrar mi cumpleaños con ustedes en vez de estar con mi familia, con mis hijos, en fin, pero es una gran fortuna al fin y al cabo. Y aunque ustedes no lo crean, estoy cada vez no soy tan joven como parezco, y eso me hace pensar cada vez más que estoy cada vez más cerca de la jubilación. Y el estar más cerca de la jubilación me ha hecho entrar en un profundo estado reflexivo. Y me pregunto, ¿qué es la jubilación? Parto con preguntarme, yo creo que ustedes tampoco saben lo que es jubilación, y me puse a buscar en este mundo tecnológico que nos ofrece. Y jubilación proviene del latín jubilare, que significa gritar de alegría. ¿Quién lo diría? Gritar de alegría. Entonces yo me pregunto si los jubilados pueden gritar de alegría cuando dejan de trabajar. Esa es mi pregunta. Sin duda, estos son tiempos desafiantes y emocionantes para todos los que estamos involucrados con los sistemas de pensiones. La baja cobertura, o sea, la baja participación en el sistema, el poco porcentaje de adultos mayores que tienen derecho a una pensión, los cambios demográficos, los temas de sostenibilidad, sin duda son desafíos para todos los sistemas de pensiones de la región. Pero además, la automatización, la digitalización y la existencia de las plataformas demográficas ponen un territorio desconocido para todos nosotros que trabajamos en el mundo de las pensiones. Los cambios tecnológicos van a brindar oportunidades, pero también van a traer importantes desafíos. Y uno de esos importantes desafíos es que los cambios tecnológicos van a traer cambios en cómo están concebidas las relaciones laborales tradicionales. Y eso va a tener importantes cambios que incluso todavía no alcanzamos a dimensionar en su justa medida. Pero los cambios tecnológicos también nos van a traer una ventana de oportunidades. Nos van a traer mejores formas de ahorrar para la jubilación, nos van a permitir consolidar la confianza de los participantes en los sistemas de pensiones y van a traer nuevas herramientas de comunicación que antes ni siquiera existían. Del seminario del día de hoy quiero rescatar 4 lecciones. Primero, el seminario nos enseñó iniciativas innovadoras para aumentar la participación de los sistemas de pensiones. Y no solo en la región, como es el proyecto del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo a través del proyecto del Laboratorio de Ahorro para el Retiro, sino también nos trajeron experiencias de otros países fuera de la región. El seminario nos mostró la existencia de canales innovadores y nuevas técnicas para comunicar temas relevantes y para mejorar la educación previsional. Además, el seminario nos mostró alternativas para mejorar la arquitectura de elección y nos mostró elementos para mejorar la confianza de las distintas partes involucradas. Creo que en este nuevo mundo de oportunidades, el seminario permitió una excelente interacción de los participantes de más de 15 países que están en el día de hoy y una profunda discusión sobre temas de tecnología. Confiamos que las ideas del día de hoy no queden enterradas después del cóctel. Y esperamos que cuando cada uno de nosotros vuelva a los países, puedan tomar las lecciones del seminario y seguir trabajando no solo por mejorar los sistemas de pensiones de la región, sino para cumplir el verdadero significado de la palabra jubilación. Y quiero terminar diciendo que en el seminario del día de hoy ha sido un esfuerzo importante de 4 instituciones: AIOS, BID, CIACAP y SMB. Y de verdad quiero agradecer el enorme esfuerzo de estas 4 instituciones por llevar adelante este importante evento. Muchas gracias por todo.